Wonderful. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Nicola Rylett-Jones, and I'm a AGP relationship manager and coach with AGP as well. I'm also a business consultant, a fellow and the deputy chair of the Institute of Leadership and Management, and a non-exec director of a number of businesses. I'm actually joined today, I'll just do a quick intro now, by Ben. He's at this side of me. I don't know which side of the screen he's on for you. Ben is part of the board and the senior team at Liberty Marketing. More on them later, but Ben's come today to do a bit of a case study. For many of you, you may know that I sort of, when I do my presentations, I like to be as practical, as inclusive as possible, because I want you to go away from today with some things to be able to achieve. Just to let you know that we'll go through the presentation quite quickly. I do work at pace, but I'll send the slides to anybody that wants them. More than happy to share them and have a follow-up meeting to go through anything if it's not easily understandable within a session, or if you have a burning question that you just don't want to ask in front of others, that's fine. Just email me. The details will be later on in the presentation. This is the agenda. We won't go through reading it. We're basically today going to cover how you can get competitive advantage for your business by having your team completely clear and aligned about what you're going to try and do. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And I say within that, we've got some practical advice through a case study of Liberty Marketing to show you how this can be very impactful and give you that competitive edge that I mentioned previously. But why should I chat about this? Well, as I said, a business consultant. I've been with the AGP program now for probably about 5 or 6 years. I wasn't quite one of the first coaches, but I wasn't far off. And I recently became a relationship manager and deal with a number of participants, some fantastic businesses on the AGP. As I said, I'm a trustee and the deputy chair of the Institute of Leadership and Management, and high-performing teams and leadership of teams are my passion. Ben will tell you, he's probably nodding now. I don't talk about anything else, really. That's all I tend to go on about. Non-exec director of Swim Wales. And the reason I do all this sort of high-level leadership is because I'm passionate about helping businesses, helping people understand their roles, understand the organisation so they can do their job better, have a better work day and really feel empowered and enthralled at being in their job, thriving in the workplace. So that's who I am and what we're going to do today. But let's get down to the aim of the session. It really is to show you how you can establish that advantage from clarity of purpose, vision, mission, and values. Okay. And it's not just your clarity as an owner of a business, as a founder of a business, as the leader of a business. Yes, you have to be clear about these things. It's actually about making sure the whole business has this clarity. So why is clarity important? Why is alignment important? Now, many of you will have done strategic thinking in your business. You might have followed the Byrne-Scott model there on the right-hand side, or you might have done your own version of strategic thinking where you go through the future state, the current understanding of the position, you look at clarity of the questions, making sure you understand what you need to think about. You might do a SWOT analysis or look at the various macro and micro environments that could be affecting your business. And you might go through a strategic process thinking. And you might do that with your leadership team, and you would certainly do it as the owner and director of a business. You might also work with your leadership team to improve your leadership qualities, to be able to understand how you model the way and you inspire the vision and you challenge the process and you enable others to act. And you might work on your leadership within the organisation. Probably no doubt that you've considered high performance teams. You might have thought about how you can create a better team that will perform at a better level for you, a higher level for you. This is Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. And it just, the point I wanted to make is you'll have thought about leadership. You'll have thought about strategy. You probably would have thought about how your team is performing. But here's the question. Have you ever thought about if they're on the same bus as you? Often we think about these things, we think about strategy. We as owners and founders think about leadership, we think about our teams. But how often do we check that our teams are thinking of those things? How often do we check that the teams are aligned with our current thinking? Just because we as leaders are thinking those things doesn't mean we've articulated that well with the team. So alignment is really important to check that they're on the same bus as you, going in the same direction with the same purpose. Now, Patrick Lencioni, I quote him quite a bit, is quite a management consultant, high-performing team guru. He wrote a book called The Advantage, and he said there are 4 things that will beat any other business. If you have these 4 things in your business, you will have the advantage over really intelligent businesses. There's not, the high-performing team didn't have a level of intelligence. They didn't have all the gurus. They didn't have the star players. They didn't have the experts. What they had were these 4 things. So first of all, they did have a comprehensive and cohesive leadership team, but actually they then created clarity. They then over-communicated the clarity, and then they reinforced the clarity. So they spent 1/4 of their time building a good leadership team, and then 3/4 of their time was all about making sure they created, they communicated, and they reinforced clarity. So that's why this work is important. Clarity and the alignment of your team to your business goals, to the organization, is important because it helps them and helps you understand where you're going. What's your end destination? It helps you to navigate successful routes to that end goal. And it helps people make choices to understand what good decisions look like and what sometimes not so great, bad decisions might look like. So that's why alignment is important, because it gives your team the freedom, the empowerment to make decisions, to navigate the route, and to understand where they're going. If they understand those 3 things, then they can help you by making better decisions on a day-to-day basis. They need less time to be managed, and they can add value to your business because they'll spot things that you might not necessarily see when you're not on the shop floor as a leader. So when you're doing your strategic thinking, when I'm working with businesses, I always start with this alignment of purpose, values, mission, and vision. And I do it before I look at anything else. I check that the business has those items, they have a vision, they have a purpose, and it is absolutely aspirational. It's for the right reasons. They understand what they do, they understand how they do it, and they understand why they do it. So what should we be aligning, and what should we be clear about with our teams? So there are 6 critical questions that Patrick Lencioni talks about in terms of gaining clarity. Why do we exist? How do we behave? What do we actually do? And sometimes more importantly, what we don't do. How will we succeed? What is the most important thing to do right now? And who must do what? So they're the 6 questions that Patrick Lencioni thinks and believes that give you an advantage. If your teams know the answer to these 6 questions and can articulate them in terms of their role, their responsibilities, their day-to-day activities, then you will have an advantage, because it's not just one person driving the bus and leading the ship. It's actually all your team are driving the bus and moving the ship in the same direction. As I said, another person that talks a lot about this is Simon Sinek, and he says, understanding why you do what you do, what's the purpose, understanding how you do what you do, how you behave, how you get a difference in the marketplace, and then what you do are really important for your team to get under their skin. So the first area that we want to look at is vision. So, sorry, the sunlight. Wouldn't you believe it? The sunlight's coming through my office now. You're not going to see my face for some time. So what are the 8 questions around vision that people need to understand? So successful entrepreneurs do know that you have to have an attractive and well-defined vision to your organization. You have to get people to understand your end point. So that goes through everything from what are your core values to what's your main focus, what's the goal for the next 10 years, what's the marketing strategy, what's our 1-year plan, what are our quarterly priorities. This is Gino Wickman from Traction, and he calls those rocks. You could call them goals, They're the same thing. And what are the problems and the obstacles that might get in our way? Now, if we can get the team understanding this information, then they're more able to make decisions. They're more able to understand what to do next without waiting to be told. They're more able to see if something's not working towards your 10-year strategy, and they can actually then bring that to your attention so you can fix those problems and look at the obstacles that are preventing you from getting in the way. As I said, that's part of a entrepreneur operating system, OES, from Gino Wickman and a book called Traction. If you haven't read it yet, I would recommend everybody having a read. It's about 230 pages. It's really quick. I read it 2 days on a sun lounger. It's very easy to read. There's nothing really what's the word, a revelationary in it, but he puts it together really nicely into a system. And that system looks at 6 elements. And the first one is a vision of the organization. Then you look at things like people and processes and data and traction and issues, etc. But they talk about actually being able to get everybody on the same page, and they use this, which is called a vision traction organizer. And as you can see, all those 8 questions I mentioned are on the 2-sided A4. So the first one talks about the values, the focus, the targets, the 3-year target. And the second page talks about a yearly plan, the rocks that you might want to achieve in that year, and then the issues that you might come up against. And this helps you in, an A4 piece of paper, 2 sides of A4, talk to your team about what's important, so everybody understands and has focus on and clarity around those key issues. But we'll go into that in more detail, probably in questions. But why should we share some core values, and why are shared core values in an organisation going to give you a competitive advantage? So we'll move on to values. This is how you behave. There are 4 types of values in any business. The first is permission to play values. Now, these are what you probably all identify as values in businesses. So when you say to somebody, have you got vision, have you got values in your business? Say, yes, we've got them on the wall. Or what are they? Teamwork, integrity, respect. In value terms, they're what we call permission to play values. Pretty much you wouldn't be in business if you didn't have these as a minimum standard. They're not necessarily going to give you an advantage, and they shouldn't really be having to be stated in an organisation. We should all respect anybody anyway, shouldn't we? It shouldn't be that we have to say we have respect. No. They're permission to play. They're the basics that any moral human being with ethics would want to work within in terms of values. Then you've got accidental values. These are the habits, the behaviours that come up when you as an organisation sort of get into a habit of doing certain things at certain times of the day. For example, gossiping around a water cooler might be okay, but actually that can quite quickly turn into a habit that becomes quite negative in some parts of the team. You've then also got aspirational values. They're the values that you aspire to have. So, for example, I recently said that I thought that the servant leadership demonstrated by the Queen was a great example of an aspirational value. The value of servant leadership, the behaviour of servant leadership is something that I aspire to. I don't quite have it yet, but in the long term, I'm hoping that I'll be developing that value. And then finally, core values. These are the values that make you different, that make you stand out, that give you a competitive advantage over your other organisations in your marketplace. So core values are really important because they're what are unique to you in your organisation. We'll come on to more about explaining these in a second. So core values, they are the principles and the behaviours that, if implemented well, they'll become the advantage culture of your organisation. Okay, so they're the principles and the behaviours that, if you implement them well and embed them well into your organisation, they will become a winning culture. And I just thought it might be useful just to sort of say, why do we need values? Well, obviously, values, the beliefs and the principles behind values will drive your business. They help your team to understand how to work together. They can distinguish your brand, and they can also help you make business decisions. So they can, if they're at top of your mind when you're thinking about various decisions, as I said earlier, they can help you make a good decision based on your values, or they can help you maybe say really true to the vision of your organization if you keep them at the top of your mind when you're working through various items in terms of decision making. So that's why we need values. They drive the organization and the business. They help you work together, they distinguish your brand, and they help you make better business decisions. So building consensus around these core values, the competitive advantage, help you build a high performance team, because by having that shared value in terms of the core values, you can then I'm looking for a particular slide, that's what I want. You can then develop a much stronger relationship with the individuals in your organization. So when you're wanting to develop a relationship, whether that be a business relationship or a stakeholder relationship, it doesn't really matter whether they're a partner or a customer or a team member. What you want to do is take them from the unfamiliar and the familiar through the intimate to the meaningful relationship. And you do that by know, like, and trust. And to do that, you have to find shared values. So if you can connect with your customers on those shared core values, those things that make you unique, you will get a more meaningful relationship with your clients. I'm just going to go back a little bit. So we want to build consensus around shared values. We want to build the consensus around those core values that are your unique fingerprint, your unique footprint as an organization. So we don't really want to build consensus around the permission to play values because they're not unique. So if we take, I'll just give you a quick example here. If we take a Welsh organization, they said there are 4 values here. Organization A: integrity, honesty, objectivity, and impartiality. Okay. Organization B: integrity, excellence, success, courage, family, humor. Organization C: communication, equality, reward and recognition, fun, and excellence. Now, all those 3 organizations are very respected and large organisations in Wales, but there's not a lot of unique value there. Yes, they've got different combinations of the top 18 company values across the UK, but they're not unique. You don't see that as an advantage. Everybody can say they've got integrity, and they should say they've got integrity in business. So I would caution you when you're thinking about how you can get competitive value in your business, think in more depth around the values of the organization, and make sure that actually you are not just focusing on the permission to play values, but you're actually focusing on those core values that make you unique in an organization. Okay, so we're wanting to go for that unique set of values so that we can develop that relationship that I went through with you earlier, sorry. So we're wanting to find the unique values that we have as an organization, the unique way we behave as an organization, and then we want to share that with our stakeholders, our partners, our teams, our customers, and we will find that shared bond. We will find our sort of tribe, if you want to say it that way. So that's a little bit about how you get clarity around vision, and a little bit about how you get clarity about values. But I wanted to make this practical, as I said. So I'm going to bring Ben in now, if you want to come off mute, Ben. And I want to just look at a bit of a case study around putting this into practice in a business. I've been working with Liberty Marketing as a coach through AGP for some time, and now I'm working with them in a private capacity. And we've just done this alignment work with Liberty. So Ben, before I just put a summary slide up, I think that's you in the picture there, isn't it?
I'm going to say me from with a bit more hair.
Okay, so my first question, Ben, because I thought we'd do this in a bit of a Q&A. I have prepped Ben, so we get the best out of this time. So Ben, can you explain why Liberty decided to come and do an alignment project?
Absolutely, yeah. So this time last year, we sort of reached the end of a life cycle of our old leadership team. So I joined the leadership team sort of last summer, and obviously the leadership team live and breathe the EOS system that Nick has already talked about before. So essentially we reached a point where we had new leaders at the top, we had new managers coming in to backfill, a lot of change, and essentially, a need to review meetings, huddle cadence. We had a need to refresh our mission and vision and values. So essentially there was quite a practical reason to pick this up again, because a lot of the people who brought that system in had since moved on, and also a lot of new managers coming through who needed to be taught all about it really. So.
Okay, and so how did you go about getting everybody aligned? What was the process you used?
So I mean, firstly, everyone had an onboarding period. Obviously, as you change role, you've got to leave your old job behind and pick up a new one. So part of that onboarding was explaining this is the system that underpins our business. Here's what it is. Here's the terminology that we're here. Like you mentioned earlier, that clarity was really important to make sure that we were clear about what all the acronyms mean and what all the different meeting cadences are and stuff like that. Obviously, as you mentioned a second ago, you were obviously brought in as a non-exec advisor as well, to basically help to pick up the pieces and to help basically drive us forward in terms of picking up all of the different the different mechanisms, I suppose, that underpin EOS and making sure that the business does actually follow that model. We don't just say we do because we brought it in 2 or 3 years before. We kind of did a big audit and a big refresh of how compliant we actually were. I think the last big part of that was leveling up our management team. So like I say, we had kind of what before was our management team become the leadership team. And as we backfilled managers, we very quickly realized the need to help that management layer understand what EOS is, what our mission is, what our values are, and to make sure they understand their role in it. Like, so be really, really clear with where they sit and their role in making this system stick and to work professionally.
I'm going to chuck a quick question in, just because I think we haven't meant to prep this, but how often do you need to repeat these things, Ben, and how much time have you spent repeating these things in terms of the project so far?
As much as I can, to be fair. Like, live and breathe it is basically my advice. I mean, if you just look at EOS as a model or whichever model it is that you pick up and think, reviewing it once is fine and it'll just run itself, that's not the case. So almost every day I mention it to somebody, depending on who they are. Monthly one-to-ones, we have weekly huddles, making sure that people realize that this meeting is one part of a greater cadence of meetings and it feeds in this way, and being clear about what huddles are for, what meetings are for. So as constantly as I can, really, without banging on about it too much.
And what have the results been in terms of this process?
So I mean, the company's in the best financial position it's been in terms of we've got 4 months of running costs in the bank. We're the most profitable we've ever been in terms of percentage of profit. I think we're potentially also the largest we've been as well, definitely in terms of client size, but also in terms of in terms of the revenue that's coming in. I think lastly, everyone understands where they sit within it. I mean, as someone who was previously at the management layer rather than kind of the leadership team layer, I knew had one part of EOS and it was kind of like our delivery meeting, and that was really it. I think people talk about it a lot more. They understand the system that underpins the business, and generally there's a lot more clarity around where they fit within it, and they don't need to be involved in everything, but they know that this might be the cog that they're involved in keeping turning, because that all feeds into the bigger picture.
Okay, great. And 1 or 2 bits of advice for anybody thinking of embarking on either a vision, mission and values alignment project, or taking on EOS as a system for doing that and to get clarity in the business. What would you say?
Take it seriously. So make sure that when you embark on this project, it's not just like lip service. It's not just a thing that you pick up once and believe because you do one meeting that's it, or because you adhere to part of it, it'll work. Like, take it seriously. Make sure that you know who internally is responsible for keeping the standards and keeping the meetings running efficiently and everything else, following the agendas, that sort of stuff. So have internal ambassadors, or seek external support like we did with yourself, to make sure that's all in place. And lastly, just appreciate it might be baby steps. It might take time to get to this point. Like I say, we've spent 12 12 long months getting to the point where we're in a really good spot again. But like this was first brought in maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it goes through waves as you go through life cycles and stuff. So yeah, baby steps. If like every day you move your organization 1% back to kind of where you want it to get to, that's cool. Like you've got the day-to-day running of a business to keep an eye on as well. So just make sure that you don't beat yourself up if you feel like you're treading water while also trying to tackle a bigger project like this. But yeah, baby steps, and just keep moving everything 1% the right way, and you'll get there.
Hopefully you can stay around, Ben, because we'll just summarize what you've said, and we'll just finish off and probably have some questions. Thank you for that. That's great. Just thought we'd do that here. And I think just to summarize what Ben said here, is that it's about you building the right relationships across the whole business. As Ben said, he was in the management layer, and we brought him up to the leadership layer, and we need to make sure that the people coming through the organization, succession planning, are always involved and always engaged in the organisation.
I'm listening to something at the moment, but I mean, I'll be off in a few.
David, we can just hear you, just so you know, you're not on mute at the moment, just in case you say anything else. So yeah, the team need to come on the journey with you. They need to be on the bus. So you need to get buy-in from everybody. And we do mean everybody. So that does take time. It takes personal conversations. Ben and I have had many conversations with many in the business about what this means for them personally. Take it seriously, as he said. It takes effort to answer the questions, and it takes effort to make sure you're constantly thinking about it, and you stick to the meeting cadences, and you stick to the behaviours, and you do something about the behaviours if they're not in the business. If people aren't behaving the right way that you want them to, you need to do something about that. Have a robust process and system and person to keep you intact. And then also making sure that if required, you get some external support to be able to help you in that area. And as Ben said, any progress, it should be motivational. It's baby steps. So I think David just had to go off there. There's something obviously happening at his end. But yeah, the case, with the case study, remember, progress is about baby steps, and progression is going to give you motivation. So just finally, who's responsible for keeping the business aligned? Well, actually, you might be, shocked to hear I'm going to say everyone. Because actually, once you've got your team aligned behind the vision, mission, and values of the organisation, actually everybody needs to be empowered to be able to make any changes, to call anybody out, to bring things to people's attention. This is not just about the leadership team. This is about the whole business being empowered to be able to make the decisions to move your business forward. So you want everybody in your organisation to be involved in this discussion, to understand what it means for them, and then to feel psychologically safe enough to bring things to the attention. We had it recently where one of the Liberty team actually called me out at the fact I hadn't sent something that I said I was going to send. And that was great. It was really good. I mean, I didn't like it, but it was great that they felt comfortable enough to be able to say, oh, by the way, Nicola, you're going to send me that thing that you haven't sent me. That's fine. That's great. I don't mind that at all, because actually that means that they're feeling that they understood, they knew what needed to happen, and for them to get on with their bit of the project, they weren't going to wait. They were going to make sure that we did what we needed to do as leaders. So that's what you want. You want your team to be supporting each other and pushing forward, because they're all empowering each other to crack on with the next step. But what do you do? Just a really simple diagram here about how to bring alignment to your team. Step by step. First of all, your leadership team, or you as the founder, or you as director, whoever you want in your senior team, have to agree that purpose, vision, mission, and values. And there is a way of going through that. Then I would suggest you complete the VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer, and you make sure you understand what the various parts of that are all about. Once you've done that as a leadership team, you then workshop that with the wider team, and you get buy-in by getting them to go through their various activities. So when I'm doing this with clients, I will do a workshop with the leadership team to confirm the purpose, the vision, the mission, the values. Then I'll complete the VTO with them, and we work on the wording, and we make sure we're very specific about what we're saying in there. Then we do the same workshop with the wider team, but of course, the vision's already written and the values are already written. So we're then about getting them to understand what it means to them personally. Then I would suggest you create a values committee. So that could be your leadership team with members of the team. It could be just the members of the team. The leadership team might not have anything to do with it. I'm working with an organisation at the moment that it's the team that have created the committee. They're actually empowering the team to crack on and get these values into the organisation. Then you need to set up a set of projects and activities that will embed these behaviours and these vision and mission and purpose statements into the organisation. And that isn't just putting them on the wall. We all know that doesn't work, or the virtual wall or whatever you do these days if you haven't got an office. That's about making sure that actually you've got them in your HR systems, you've got them in your appraisal systems, you've got them in your objectives, your goals, you're talking about it in your weekly wins of the week. You make sure you celebrate success around the values that make you unique and give you that competitive advantage. And then you set up a review cadence of meetings, whether that be quarterly review meetings, yearly offsites, etc., that make sure you keep on top of the operating system that you've decided to use, and keep on top of the values in the business. Values will start to merge, they'll start to change. When new people come into the organisation, unless you're very good at keeping on top of that alignment, values will sort of start to dilute if you're not careful. So keeping a regular review of the values and making sure you're constantly touching base with the team to keep that alignment there, that's really important. It only takes 1 degree off at the beginning to be quite a long way off 6 months down the line. So make sure you've got a regular review. So any questions? Pretty much that's the presentation. Competitive advantage comes from understanding and having your team completely aligned to your organization's end goal. And to do that, we suggest using the entrepreneurial operating system and focusing on core values rather than permission to play values. So I'll stop there for a moment and just ask if there's any burning questions.
I haven't got any questions, but brilliant presentation. You know, it makes me think about the alignment on all aspects, you know, just documenting it on our intranet, our processes, because we work, there's 18 of us, and in Cardiff there's about 8 of us, and the rest of the team decentralized. So it's trying to think, how can we bring them in on our vision? So there's a lot of actually more homework for me to do now. You know, but yeah, no questions. It was really, really clear. In fact, Ben, how's your experience been implementing it, and if you've got any tips for us?
It's a good question. I think it's obviously all about context and knowing where you're starting from, where you're trying to get to. But I mean, it's a very good question. My experience, I suppose, has been eye-opening. I think the good thing is we all started as a leadership team this time last year from the same point. We all had the same values. We all had the same mission and vision in mind. So we didn't have any problem at the start with that early bit in terms of where we want to get to. It was very quick to get to the core thing that we're trying to roll out, basically. So I suppose my experience is I'm lucky that we didn't have big conflicting opinions at the start when trying to set the direction. That bit was the easy part. As we then got through, our only real problem, I wouldn't say problem, our biggest challenge, I suppose, is, like I said, the new management layer coming through and the new leadership team. We were bedding in 2 layers of the business, setting out those roles while also bedding this in. So I'd say for me, it was fast paced because you want to do it all at the same time. Otherwise you bed people in and then you bring this in. So you kind of, that Wallace and Gromit gif when you've got Wallace on the train doing the tracks and the train's hurting along and he's let the tracks going as quickly as the train, right? It kind of felt a bit like that, I suppose, in terms of like, it does feel fast, it does feel quick paced, but yeah, make sure you've got a safe environment to, when you're having a tough day and it's all on top of you, you can just unload to someone at the same sort of level as you. But yeah, I'd say don't worry if it feels fast, because it does slow down. Like once you've got the core bits in place, it was all very worth it. But yeah, like I said, I suppose my experience, I was lucky at the start, was nice and simple in terms of that direction. The tough bit was keeping pace with getting embedded in, but it's so worth it. If I could give one big takeaway, it would be get the clarity in place and get going with it, because it all pays off in the end.
Thank you.
Just to add an example to what you were saying, one of the other organisations on AGP is an international mostly remote organisation, and I've just done this process with them. In fact, actually, some of the slides that you've seen are from their presentation. And actually, they had the opposite problem to Liberty. they didn't have clarity on the leadership level around their vision and mission and values. And I had to spend quite a lot of the first workshop with them getting that clarity. But actually, after about 3 hours, and I normally only spend about an hour on this stuff, but after about 3 hours, they asked me what I thought. And I'd listened to everything in the room, and I suggested 3 things in terms of values that were really practical, that went to the essence of their organisation. And those 3 things, the founder and the number one in the company, they're now about 50 odd staff, but the number one and the founder of the organisation just went, yes, that's what we had when we first started off. So we went right back to the essence of the organisation. And when we got to that point, we had 3 statements, which were making decisions, moving boundaries, and moving forward. Yeah. So removing boundaries, moving forward, and making decisions. And they are their values, so that everybody in the organisation knows it's their job to make a decision. They all know it's their job to move something forward. They all know it's their job to remove a boundary, to remove a barrier. And so once we got that, the rest of the workshop was pretty clear, pretty easy. And then we had to roll that out with the senior team. But because, I say 80% of their team is remote and only a few of them are in Cardiff, then actually what we found is actually we had to do that workshop in a different way. So it is possible to do remotely, and it is possible to get buy-in from those remotely. It just takes a little bit of a different effort, and you have to look at it in a different way, because of course you have to think about things even like timescales of when you run the session, timescales of the cadences of the meeting. So for example, if you're in the UK and you're having a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning, that's quite tricky for somebody in Asia, because actually that could be the middle of the night or whatever it could be for them in Iran or whatever. So you have to think about that, even just more logistics like that will be inclusive for everybody in the organisation.
One last
No,
thought.
I like that. Sorry, go on.
So I was going to say, my one last thought while Nicola was chatting, I just had another little reflect on your question. I'd say one other thing that I noticed in terms of, like I said, we've almost gone through 2 life cycles of EOS. So the first couple of years, and then we kind of kicked it off again last year, and now we've done the last year or so. I think simplicity was really key to getting things to stick. So before, for example, we had values as an agency for 5 years that were on the wall, and I couldn't have told you what they were when I was a manager in the business because they were just hard to remember. Now we've got 3 values. They start with A, B, and C, and anyone in the agency can tell you what those values are because they're easy to remember, they're simple, and they capture everything we do. And I think that kind of clarity and that getting things to stick has come as a result of us going, how can we distill this down to the easiest way? Like Nicola kind of alluded to earlier, our weekly wins of the week. Here is a win, and this is the value it embodied. Here's a win from someone, here's the value it embodied. And I reckon you could ask anybody in the agency now, and they'd be able to tell you the values. Go back 2 years, I think maybe 10% of people could. So yeah, I'd add that in as well.
No, I like that. So just, like the example Nicola gave. So just literally 3 small, tiny sentences to really take it back for the values of the company, and then build on top of that. So yeah, I don't think even I know I have this big value statement, but yeah, to go back and have a look what the 3 key things that everybody would, repeat and reiterate and
with the company I was talking about, they had, when I asked them for the values, they gave me a list of 20 odd words. I went, you can't do that. That's not possible. That's not possible. And when we looked at them and we grouped them together, half of them were permission to play. So I just forget those. They are standard. You have to have them to be in this business. If you don't have them, you can't work in this company. Just ignore, that's the minimum standard of work. That's the permission to play. That's your minimum fee for playing. And then the rest of them, when we looked at them, they grouped into areas. So, for example, around the moving and removing barriers, it's about problem solving, it's about creativity, it's about challenging the process. That's all around removing barriers. So what we understood was actually, in the end, these words were quite grouping. They were able to be grouped together quite nicely to create these statements. And the statements that, as Ben says, people understand, and they can understand what it means to them. They understand how to act. And that's what you want, is you want everybody, a value is no good stuck on a wall. You want your value to be representative of how you want your team to behave.
We've also put ours into our performance reviews as well. So when we have monthly and quarterly performance reviews, they're kind of the guys' PDPs, the values are in that. So when we do 360 feedback, we have the values to basically be scored on by their colleagues. And in one-to-ones and quarterly reviews, the manager assesses their alignment of the values, basically. So we basically dripped it right down to the the monthly and the quarterly reviews, but also, like I say, wins of the week. So it's almost like everything we do, we try and live and breathe them to bed it in properly. So it kind of then starts to come back up. So, we distill the values down, and then it starts to come back up from the bottom as well.
Thank you.
I'm just going to ask Nicola if she is there, if she's got any questions. Just don't want to ignore her if she has anything she wants to ask. Any questions, Nicola? No. Okay. All right. Yeah. So basically, that's the presentation. I'm just going to flick back up because I just want to just get you. Will
we get a copy of this recording?
Yeah, you can have a copy of the recording, Omar. Just send, when we speak tomorrow, just remind me and I'll get you a copy of it. But basically, just to remind everybody, what we're talking about is the entrepreneurial operating model, operating system. It's by Gino Wickman from a book called Traction. You get it secondhand for a few quid off Amazon, or of course you can have it as audiobook. But there's plenty of copies out there. There are 6 areas that he talks about, everything from vision to data to processes to traction, which is sales and marketing, to issues and to people. And he basically says, look, the first thing to do is to get clarity on the vision and the traction of the organisation. Where's the organisation going? What are your values? What are your niches? What's your product? What's your marketing message? What's your 10-year plan? That might be 5. If you want to exit within 5. What's the 3-year picture? What's the 1-year picture? What are the rocks you need to achieve first? And then what are the issues that are going to stop you from achieving your rocks and achieving your 1-year plan? And I kid you not, once you've got clarity around this piece of paper, your team and your business will have a competitive advantage, because not only is it you as the business owner that's pushing driving the bus forward, pushing the bus forward, actually all your team understand where you're going, understand how they can get to the end point and navigate to the end point, and they understand how to make good decisions more than making bad decisions. Okay, great. Any other questions? No? Go on, Omar.
No question. I just wanted to thank you guys for your time. It's really been eye-opening. Yes, thank you.
We'll chat some more about it tomorrow in our session. I just want to personally thank Ben for, actually I didn't realise you're on a day off, so Ben, thank you very much for taking
I'm on a half day, so I'm finishing after this, so don't worry.
Okay, that's okay, that's good. I just had this impression of me taking up your time on your annual leave. And Lisa, over to you to end proceedings.
Okay, thanks Nicola, a lot of information on that one. Thanks for joining us, and thanks Ben as well for giving us your time. Omar, you'll get the recording as long as you sign your AG3 and send it back to me.
Okay, I will.
I know what I've got to tell Nicola off for these things, because she promises, and I'm like, yeah, no, I need the paperwork, but yeah, I can get that. Nick, can you send over the slides? You happy to share those as well?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, the recording does go off for editing first, so it usually takes about 24 hours, but as soon as that's available, I'll get that over to you. Okay, so no problems with that one. So thanks for joining us. Thanks again for your time, and hopefully you enjoy Bath, Ben, and I hope you get another trip out of that one, because as a woman, I say you deserve more for that.
To be fair, I'm doing a stag do with the man sat opposite me next year, so it's just a warm up. Don't worry, it's all good.
Okay then.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Enjoy your day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Take care.